good.
I'm right here.
I didn't see you. I'm right behind you.
That big.
No, you were directly in line for me.
Dang.
Wow.
What does that say for me?
Not going to touch that. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Ed to order. Emergency exits are to the rear, the right, and the left. Taylor, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Robert Tillman,
Here.
James Mooney,
Present.
William Ball,
Here.
Jeffrey Riazzi,
Here.
Christine Bellarosa,
Here.
Carol Kelder,
Here.
Raymond McClary,
Here.
Scott Polson,
Here.
Timothy Wells.
Virtually here.
This meeting is called for the purpose of school budget information and board action items. I'll entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Polson. Any discussion? None being heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will return to public about 7 o'clock. Keller, second by Mr. Yotzi. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now that the size of the room has tripled since we went into executive session, ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as you know, this meeting is held for the purpose of school budget information and board action items. There's a public recognition session that says 20 minutes on the agenda, but I want to give everybody who wants to speak an opportunity to speak, so we've agreed to waive that 20-minute time period. If you want to come up and speak, that's fine. Please just, if you're talking about positions, that's fine. Please don't mention any specific names attached to those positions for the sake of confidentiality. That's part of our personality policy. So feel free to come up, address the board, state your name and residence, and feel free to speak. None being heard, I'll refer to Dr. Ursig for a budget presentation.
Welcome everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Good. Okay. So, I know we've been presenting just about every week on the budget. I want to give you another update with some proposals, and then answer any questions that you may have. So, just quick overview, New York State updates, budget status, current budget status, our approach to budgeting, reductions already accounted for, tax levy calculations, revenue, proposal A, proposal B, and then an overview of capital outlay project, which we'd like to continue as well. So first, with the New York State budget, so Friday afternoon, I think around 3 o'clock or so, the state runs came out. So our foundation has been fully restored to that 17.4 million number. It was at 16.9 number prior to. Also notable with the budget is Governor Hochul's Back to Basics reading plan, which emphasizes the science of reading, and then in 2025 we're going to have to certify that our curriculum is aligned with the science of reading. So while we've started getting there, there's still work to be done over the next year and a half or so to meet that requirement there. Current budget status, we shared something similar to this last time. This time we simplified it a little bit just by going with the big budget codes. So you can see general support, the 2023-24 approved budget, the adjusted budget, we didn't adjust that budget was not adjusted, and the amount available right now of that $107,000. Instructional support, so that budget has been increased to about $38 million. We have about $150,000 left. Transportation, you can see. Employee benefits, it was reduced a little bit. We still have a little bit left in there. Debt service, and then inter-transfer funds. So right now, currently, we have about, I can't see the box there, $800,000 of available funds right now. at this moment of time. I just want to review our approach to budgeting, just so everybody has a clear understanding of the process we went through to come up with numbers and figures for these presentations. So first is, well, not to say first, but these are the things that we've done, right? So we've calculated the cost for current staff, taking into account retirees, replacing staff with appropriate spots based on those retirees, also calculating FICA, Medicaid, pension system. So that's going through, literally pulling every employee, rolling them up a year, seeing what that cost would be. We reconciled health insurance for active staff and retirees. So just as it sounds, we pull up every staff member that we have, see what plan they have, what will it be next year. And once again, with health insurance, we have to budget for 12-month premium. And we may get a DHIC holiday, but that has not been finalized yet. So that's kind of a big increase for health insurance. We generate and review our BOCES Mid-Hudson information service request. So that's literally meeting with BOCES, going through the ISR, the initial service request form, looking at everything. So just so everybody's aware of what goes into that, right? So it talks about special ed placements. It talks about, we also kind of have to account for our students who are pending placements. It talks about related and itinerant services. So students who need OT, PT, students who need aids, assistive technology. This also incorporates our temporary therapeutic program as well as the long-term therapeutic program through BOCES. Now, this is just those students that receive those services through BOCES. We do have students who receive speech, OT, PT through us as well. That's a different part of it. Also, as part of BOCES is our technology, right? So it's our Infinite Campus, which is our student management system. Envision, that's where we generate the business information from. Frontline, various databases for students, the library, OLOS, for hiring, family ID, our data warehouse where we have to report stuff to the state, and where we verify the data. Other highlights would be the health and safety risk management part of it as well. Then we go and we look at determined and anticipated transportation costs, right? So based on our students now, we have to provide transportation to everybody. What will that cost? Our transportation office go through those calculations. All right. We collaborate with our financial consultant to determine debt service and building aid. We review state funding proposals to determine if any adjustments are necessary. So one notable category for that is transportation, right? So transportation, they give us an aid amount based on if we were to do every single run that we had to do, right? So if we have, for instance, for argument's sake, if we had a student who needed to be transported, to Kingston, we send them the amount that it would cost us to transport that student to Kingston. And they do that. But throughout the year, we're able to kind of consolidate and save places. So if we have a cross contract with Kingston, we would spend less on that. So we reduce with our best educated determination as to what that state funding should really be versus the actual printout we get from the state. We look for additional revenues, right? So in years past, we have not booked revenue for Vinto students or homeless students. There's been a trend of income coming from that, so we've now booked out those into those things to try to get a more accurate picture of what our actual revenues are. And then lastly, to highlight, we examined historical budgets and expenditures, right? So we went to last year, the year before, we looked at these item lines, how much was budgeted, how much was spent, is there any kind of trends going on to make sure that the numbers we're putting together are logical and make the most sense as possible. Reductions that have already been accounted for. So we have a retirement of the head custodian, retirement of maintenance foreman. This will be replaced by one FTE of a director of facilities. This was actually in the budget last year. So today this are in January, but we have not done that. So we're going to roll over to the next budget. We had a student with a one-to-one nurse. That's no longer necessary. We had a science content specialist for 1 day a week through OSHA. That was reduced. We had behavioral support. We had some coming out of a grant and then some coming out of the general fund this past year. We have taken it, we have removed it from the general fund. We're going to maintain the title funding. Just as a reminder, title funds are something extra in a sense, right? That is not reflected in the general fund for that. We're also going to be bringing the ACA processing in-house next year. And we switched our phone service provider, and we've also reduced non-essential software for that.
Dan, can you just say what the ACA process is?
Yeah, so that has to do with American.
The Affordable Care
Correct.
Act, you receive around tax time a little report about your health.
Saying that you have health insurance and who's
Okay,
recovering.
all right, thanks.
This is a slide we shared in the past in terms of the calculation for the tax levy cap. I'm not going to go through it, but it's that $45.7 million number. This is with the 2% cap on inflation. Sorry, thank you. Just historical, right, so in 2021, it was 2.9%, the tax levy limit was 2.36%, 3.96%, and then this year it would be 3.62%. So this would be a simple majority, just getting 50% of those who are voting in the affirmative for it. That would be an increase of roughly $1.6 million. As we shared previously, rough estimate, very rough estimate, would be an increase of 55 cents per $1,000 assessed, for a total of $1,571 overall. So for a homeowner with $300,000 home, roughly, $4,713. Those are strictly estimates at this point in time. We'll have greater detail once we adopt a budget. We can go ahead and get better estimates for that. Once again, we picked 300,000 just because we thought it'd be easy to kind of scale up, scale down, depending on where people are. In the past, there's been expressed interest in the board about possibly going over the tax cap. So this shows those calculations. This was the same numbers that were shared last time. Right, so the first column all the way to the left at 2%, that's the allowable growth factor. That will increase it 3.62%. Those are numbers I've shared, okay? One step to the right, the supermajority, that would be if we change the allowable growth factor to 3%. So increasing that state required limit from 2 to 3%. It would increase the amount of funds to $2 million, or an increase of 4.61%. Okay, that would be an extra 70 cents on the 1,000 as compared to the 55 cents for a simple majority. Okay, all the way to the right, supermajority. If we change the allowable factor to 3.3%, that would be a tax rate increase, or sorry, tax levy increase, not the rate, the levy of 4.91%. Which would be $2.1 million, or an extra $570,000 compared to just the simple majority amounts. Monetarily, that becomes 74 cents per $1,000 assessed increase over last year's for that. Okay. Expense-based aid, very similar to last time, just minor tweaks, comes out to 8.7 million. Once again, pre-K funding, in my mind, is a little misleading. Right? If you look at the state aid for pre-K funding, it says we're going to get $700,000. That's not the case because it's based on enrollment. So we have 80 students. We have not had a waiting list, so we're planning for 80 students. That's one of those areas that we've reduced. Our other revenue sources, this is where we have also some more additions. If you look at the very bottom row, pre-K provider services, that $100,000, that is if we go ahead and hire a speech and language pathologist to provide service to our UPK students. We can get reimbursed $80 per session, so we think $100 is a safe, or sorry, $100,000 is a safe amount to put in that category. Also, the homeless, we feel $150,000 in revenue is a logical amount for that as well, based on the trends we've seen. All right, so this shows us revenue comparisons. All right, so I'm going to go to the middle of the screen there for the 24-25 with the 3.62% tax levy. Right, so the tax levy would be $45.7 million, foundation of $17 million, expense-based aid of 8.6, miscellaneous revenue of 2.1. It's just a total revenue of $74.6 million. That would be an increase of 4.89% over prior year. Once again, that is for the simple majority. Okay. One step to the right of that is that 4.61% tax levy. That would get us a total revenue of $75 million roughly, or an increase of 5.5%. And then all the way to the right is that 4.91% tax levy that alone can require a supermajority of the 75.2-ish based on what I can see from the box covering it. Total amount for that for a 5.69% increase. Okay. Reserves and fund balance. Once again, this is the same slide as previously. We have a healthy employee retirement reserve, 3.6 million. Teacher retirement reserve at 1.9. Employee benefit liability reserve is $1 million. Unassigned fund balance is 3.3 million, and our capital reserve is 4.3 million. Now, I just want to reiterate, capital reserve fund can only be utilized with voter approval. So we can't use money for that now. It would have to be, we're going to do another building project, we want to allocate these funds. So now we're going to get into proposals. So this is where kind of formalizing some of the conversations we've had in the past. All right, so proposal A, this is page 15, going on to page 16. All right, so as I said previously, this is not a conversation I want to have ever, nor my first year being a superintendent. In considering things, in order to reduce, in order to be financially stable, right, in the back of all of our minds are, number one, what's our mission and vision, right, supporting our students, making sure that they're successful, creating that sort of experience that we want to create, right. How can we do this fiscally responsibly so that we still have our students at the center of the conversation?
Can you speak up a little?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So with proposal A, all right, the following reductions would be proposed for this. So part-time counselor, part-time Spanish certified teacher at the secondary level. Okay. This is something that we've shared in the past, so all these have been kind of shared in one version or another. The reduction of a part-time French teacher at the secondary level. Reduction of the elementary media specialist at the elementary level. A science certified teacher at the secondary level. A math certified teacher at the secondary level. English language arts teacher at the secondary level. 2 typists. Math, ELA, social studies, science, and technology lead teachers. A full-time nurse. Currently, I've got a full-time nurse at Mount Marion. We do not necessarily need to have a full-time nurse in that position. We could hire a part-time nurse to fulfill our obligations for the pre-K center over there. A reduction of 2 instructional coaches. A reduction of 1 MTSS teacher. Currently, right now, as you heard me say, we have 2 traveling MTSS teachers that travel between Cahill and Riccardi. This is in addition to the MTSS teachers that are housed in those buildings. This proposal would be to reduce 1 of those traveling individuals. Administration would decide the best use of that person to support our students' needs. We also looked at reducing elementary after-school busing. So currently, right now, we've got busing Monday through Thursday. Mondays are usually 2 meetings a month. There's faculty meetings on those Mondays. So we said if we have after-school Tuesdays and Wednesdays, there's a savings there that we can tap into. This also includes part-time teaching assistants, a reduction of 6.5 FTE, or 13 individual teaching assistants. 3 would be at the secondary level, with the remaining at the elementary level. Okay. If it's the will of the board to go with this proposal, this would maintain the following things. I thought it would be noteworthy to point these things out. Right, to be able to maintain the social worker and psychologist in each of the buildings. We still have 1 MTSS, 1 I would say additional, right, traveling that we could assign to the building with the highest need. It would still maintain 2 instructional coaches. It would still maintain the AP at Cahill Elementary. It would, there would not be as big of a reduction as in prior presentations for teaching assistants. So there would be additional non-mandated teaching assistants to be assigned by the building leaders. So if building leaders thought that they needed to support MTSS, they could assign them there. If they felt they needed to have them support kindergarten and 1st grade, they could assign those individuals there. Our advocacy specialists would be maintained. Our music would be at the same level. Our security would be maintained. Athletic trainer would be maintained, as well as pre-K. Just as remember, pre-K we talked about previously that our current pre-K provider is saying that they need $80,000. Okay.
The mic on.
The mic is dead.
There's our. Look at that.
All right, how's that? Better? All right. Thanks. Through Pre-K, once again, our current pre-K provider has said that they will need $80,000 next year to be fiscally solvent themselves. All right, modifications, additions, these are things that we shared last time as well. So it's converting 1 FTE of technology certified to 1 FTE of computer science. That's tapping into resources or human capital resources that we have at the secondary level to grow that computer science because we are having a technology teacher retire this year, and it's been extremely hard to fill technology positions. 1 FTE head custodian, 1 FTE maintenance foreman would move to that 1 FTE director of facilities as I said previously. Adding additional support for our E&L students. Last time I looked, it was 83. I think a couple more have come in. So we're at that point where we will need additional support in order to meet the federally required number of instructional minutes for those students. 1 FTE speech teacher. This is for the UPK services. Once again, this will be partly offset by a reimbursement from Ulster County if we do become an approved provider of those services. I'll turn it over to Colleen for this part.
In response to feedback, we wanted to provide as much information as we could about where the money is spent.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, Ulster does.
I'll just hold on to it. So we wanted to provide the data that might help people see where the money is spent. And I'm not going to read through the entire chart, but I'll look for some areas that people might have questions about, and of course the board can ask questions when we have a moment. So usually when you see the bigger numbers, that's where people want to know what's going on. Auditing, you'll see increases by 37%. We're budgeting 48,000. However, this year we actually had a budget of 49,000, and that includes our external auditor, our internal auditor, and we are looking to also do a business office audit because we believe it's needed. Many of the lines that decreased, especially the smaller budgets like the Board of Ed or the tax collector. We reduced supplies across the board for our admins, principals, any office that could spare some of the supply money. Record management has a 33% increase, and that's mainly based on BOCES charges for storing and processing our records there. When you look at central storeroom, I know I was asked in one of the previous board meetings if I had included the Suburban that was scheduled to be purchased this year. You'll see that this line doesn't drop that much, even though there is not a Suburban in there. And the reason is, I just mentioned that we reduced all of our principal supply lines. We know that they are still going to need supplies, and it's probably going to go beyond the budget that they have. By putting some money there, it allows us to manage it and have more control over it, make sure that we're spending it wisely for those who really need it or have, a special project or special need.
Can you discuss what that operation of plant is? It's a small percentage, but the dollar amount on it is pretty low.
Which one would you like to look at?
The operation of plant?
Okay. The operation of plant is our custodial staff.
Okay.
So that goes to the next slide.
Of course, supplies, materials, equipment, the staff themselves, overtime for staff, some software is involved, contracts for cleaning. It would also include like our bug service that comes around. health services, all of those things that keep us in compliance and keep us running day to day. You'll see 100% on property assessment. That's only because we had a presumed $50 assessment. The bill is actually $100. It's when they do some kind of environmental assessment of the property. The DEC comes and does that. It's about $100. Enough was not in the budget. Now it is. You'll see zeros around judgment and refund of taxes. Those are things that could happen in any given year. However, if we look at set up a reserves in July, we could set up a tax tertiary reserve, and if we knew of a pending lawsuit at the moment we don't have, we could also set aside money in a reserve for that. So we left those lines empty because we know that is something that in law would allow us, in case of an emergency, to appropriate that money. The next biggest percentage that you'll see as we get into the schools is the supervision of regular schools. We have 2 admins coming off the grants. Supervision of special schools, you'll see a 1,130% increase, and the reason for that is that I moved an admin from a place in the budget to put them next to the school services they actually work with. So they were posted as a district admin, but they really should have been with E&L, pre-K, all the things that that person manages. So now they're all together where they should be, in my opinion.
Colleen, which line were they in then? Were they from the first page over here?
It was still in the instruction side.
We should see a decrease there then, right?
Yes. But if other things went in, so if it was, I'll have to get back to exactly where it was placed, but the code was not right, and it must have been just curriculum and supervision, perhaps, above it, because it'd be down in the code. So a number somewhere in here does go down, but then if you had other costs like software, et cetera, or staff that came off the grant, it might bring it back up. Depends what's coming in. Teaching in regular schools, we've always said that salaries are one of the things that drive a budget. It's really important to make sure you reconcile this, that you look at it, you make it sure it is the best possible list that you have, because it drives so much of the budget. So this is a 9.7 increase on one of the larger numbers in our budget line. And the same you'll see in teaching for students with disabilities. And I know that is staffing because, again, we reduced many supply lines. It's true that contracts go up every year, services go up every year, but our main driver is our salary increases. Special programs with L's. Someone is coming off the grant, so that pushes that salary into that line. Library and media. We looked for services that weren't being used. Audio-visual services perhaps weren't being used, or maybe some periodicals or some library services. And the money that's not being expended can be moved between those lines. And again, if they have an area of need, they'll come speak to the business office. We have our central warehouse with the money we talked about being put aside, and somebody will help them hopefully. Computer-assisted instruction, that's our hardware and software that goes up every year. As students come in, you get a new laptop or Chromebook. And then attendance and guidance, we will see some of the reductions in those areas as well as self-service. Social worker is another high percentage. That is someone coming off the grant. Our unemployment insurance is 80%, it's the largest one on the next page. So that is because it was under budgeted this year at 25,000. You can see the adjusted budget was 41,300, and our starting budget will be 45,000 in the coming year.
Is that being driven by unemployment rates by the state versus claims of unemployment?
It will be driven by claims, and so when we find the lines that are underspent, they most likely will be supplementing this line. Where there's available money, well, I foresee moving some into that line, yes. On our final page, I think we're on, so I skipped them through, but if you're interested, let me know.
Yeah,
Biggest thing-
just, the percentage is interesting to me, but it's $20,000. I'm more interested in the $734,000 for medical and dental. Is that simply a rate increase and number of people on the plan?
So that line, I know there's some confusion about when we said that there's a large health bill. That line combines Medicare, dental, vision, other health, whatever health benefits of any kind we have get combined in that line.
Yeah.
So some of the positives in that line actually make it look smaller. So that includes all of those things, and that is the rate increase, not having the DHIC holiday.
Okay.
Both of those things combined.
So without the DHIC holiday, it's a
Yeah,
$750
no
million
DHIC holiday.
increase.
And although when you reconcile health insurance, there are different percentages of increase, generally across the board, it was a 6.9% increase,
Got it.
which varies between plans and Medicaid, et cetera.
Okay.
The largest thing on the next page is the debt service. Our financial advisors have developed a plan. We talked about having debt fall off previously when debt, if kept level, wouldn't cause dips and spikes in what you're seeing in the tax levy. So the goal here is to get on a payment plan that keeps it level for all the years of the project financing. And that is going to, this will be the first year where we're really brought up to speed where we should be in the overlay meeting for that time. For the 15 years of the bond. I know it's a lot to absorb in a little bit of time, so if you do have questions or you come up with one later, I'm always available.
So this next page is looking at our projected expenditures. So with proposal A, that's $77.7 million, and with the three revenue scenarios. So the first one would be a simple majority with $74.6 million, creates a $3 million gap. ERS reserve, we would approve, transfer the money to cover the entire ERS reserve anticipated for the year, which is that $852,000 number. TRS reserve of $764,000, which would mean that we would require $1.5 million of the fund balance to make that budget work. If we go over one step to the right with the 4.61% tax levy, right, the revenue increases slightly, so the gap is $2.7 million. Once again, a point out of ERS, TRS, and then that last line, fund balance, would be just about $1 million of our fund balance to support that tax levy. And then lastly, all the way to the right, the revenue of 75.2 million-ish, we would need to appoint just under $1 million from our fund balance to make that sustainable. All right. So that is proposal A. Proposal B, once again, was taken from feedback from our prior meetings. I don't know where it's going in now. Many of them are the same. All right, so this would be a reduction of the part-time counselor, part-time Spanish teacher, part-time French certified teacher, library media specialist, science, math, English teachers, 2 typists, math, ELA, social studies, science, technology, lead teachers, full-time nurse going to part-time, MTSS, one of those traveling individuals, and then reduce elementary after-school busing from Monday through Thursday to Tuesday and Wednesday. The difference on this page, bolded, right, so this would be an additional reduction of 1 FTE for assistant principal, 1 FTE athletic trainer. This would be a reduction of 4 of our instructional coaches, not just 2, so this would be all 4. And this would be, instead of the reduction of 13 part-time teaching assistants, this would be the reduction of 9 part-time teaching assistants. Once again, 3 would be at the secondary level, with 6 being at the elementary level. It would allow for more flexibility with building principals to assign. Proposal B, once again, maintains social worker psychology's building, maintains 1 MTSS as an additional support for buildings. Advocacy specialist that maintains art and music levels, and maintains armed security, and maintains pre-K as well. Similar modifications, right? So we'd still go with the 1 FTE technology certified, move to 1 FTE computer science. We'd then backfill the math. The head custodian maintenance becoming director of facilities, 0.5 FTE for the ENL teacher, and then once again that speech teacher for our UPK or for our pre-K students who need special education support. All right, similar to the last slide, right? We got our projected expenditures at 77.4 million. Revenues are there again, the gap. So with the simple majority, it's a $2.8 million gap. We would have to appropriate 1.2 out of fund balance. If we go above the tax cap to that 4.61% tax levy number, it would be a gap of $751,000 to make up. And then lastly, if we do go to that 4.91 number, that would be a gap of about $620,000 to make up for that. Also need to discuss capital outlay projects. As I said before, we are looking to continue with our capital outlay projects. In the past, it's been Riccardi Elementary School, the flooring there. We would like to switch gears a little bit and have more ADA compliant entrances. Currently, right now, we've got 2 ADA compliant entrances. We'd like to add an additional 2 more. With that, that would also be updates to doors and hardwares as well, in order to make the $10,000 threshold for interior work as part of that. Capital projects, once again, are $100,000 maximum. And the benefit of capital project is you get the aid the very next year. If it goes over $100,000, then you get aid over 15 years. Lastly, board trustees. So the drawing for board trustee candidates on the ballot was earlier today. Here are the 5 individuals who have submitted and will be on the ballot. Mr. Rosari, Dr. Haas, Mr. Anderson Butler, Mr. Tillman, and Mr. Meyer, in that order. Okay. So with that, we've tried to put together proposals that kind of match the conversations that have happened over the past couple of weeks, while trying to keep the trajectory that we are going on as a district, while also keeping in mind those individuals who submitted on our strategic planning survey, along with those that came and participated during those sessions to talk about the growth of Saugerties and where they want our students to be. So thank you.
Dan, since you're asking, one of the 2 of the proposals are to go above the tax cap, what are the implications if the community does not approve the budget?
Sure. You want to answer
We have the chance to put up another budget, and then we go into contingency. And a contingency doesn't allow you to collect taxes any higher than the year before, and would require many more reductions than we have currently on these slides.
And I consulted with our attorneys today, and if the board fails to come up with a budget, to approve the budget tonight, we'd be exposing ourselves to litigation, and the commissioner could void any budget vote that comes later than today and force us into a contingency budget, just for the public to have that awareness. I think when we talked in executive session, the consensus was the board's willing to go over the tax cap, but there were some questions about some adjustments we could make. So I guess now would be the time to bring those questions out and see if we could do some calculations.
Yeah, so if I look at A, which I like the proposal A because it keeps the most in our budget. But if we did a little bit of a hybrid and did a calculation, I'd like to know if we went down to one instructional coach, so by getting rid of that other instructional coach, how many additional TA positions can we restore?
And Dan, I would like to ask if you were to get rid of both instructional coaches, how many additional TA positions would you be able to restore?
Any other questions or comments?
Can I just ask a question going back to one of the pages that Colleen had mentioned? So the supervision for regular schools and the supervision for special schools, it went up about 400,000, and that's because we have to take out of what used to be paid by a grant, you're saying, and now it's in,
Yes.
we have to take it out of, okay.
We have 2 admins that came into that line from the grant.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was, as I mentioned, an adjustment for better tracking. I know people are always asking about admins. All of our admins are now in their own lines. So you'll see their salary right there. If you look on the board meeting, that has a printout of our budget.
So, I would support proposal A with the modification that Mr. Yahtzee had suggested because it maintains the most amount of positions for the district. We also had talked about, because the instructional coaches are still considered valuable to promote change to enhance the delivery instructions of our students, that we would be looking to pursue grants to get those positions back, and also grant funding for other positions that are on the chopping block. So it's not we are looking to just abandon positions. We want to try to see what we can recover and look at other funding sources in our budget. So do you need some time to calculate those proposed changes, Dan?
Absolutely.
All right, so we could break for 5 minutes if the board's agreeable to that.
Well, give me 10, all right?
He said absolutely, give him 5.
All right, so we'll give Dan 11 minutes.
All right.
Then recess.
So, sorry for my delay. So based on the conversation, it appears as though proposal A, the projected expenditure, was initially at least okay with the board, that $77.7 million number, right? And then I was asked to go in and say, okay, if we reduce one instructional coach, which has a ripple effect, it's not necessarily the instructional coach, it has to do with seniority and everything. How many TAs could be reinstated in a sense? So if it's one person, it would be 3 TAs based on the individual. If it is a reduction of 2 instructional coaches, and it'd be 7 TAs. Part-time, we're talking about part-time, that's where the reductions were, all part-time.
Any other questions of Dr. Ursig on the board?
So just so that we're clear then, let me just go back, hold on, I'm gonna get back to proposal A. So proposal A, it would be, instead of 13 individuals, it would be 6 individuals if you did full instructional coaches.
13 by 7 is 6, yes. Or it would be 10 if there were 3 instructional coaches that were reduced in one meeting.
Wait, say that again?
Okay, so going back, right, so if we work off proposal A that we had, if we were to reduce 3 instructional coaches instead of 2 instructional coaches, that would then change the amount of part-time TAs that were reduced from 13 to 10.
And if we did
And if
all 4 instructional coaches,
Which is-
it would
would
leave
go-
us with 6.
it would go from 13 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, that's part-time TAs. Right, right, so everybody knows, right, it's, for reducing a staff member, it's salary, benefits, if they have a buyout, so it's all, it's not like an exact, I mean, I have the number, but.
Okay, having heard the presentation from Dr. Ursig and Ms. Mills, I'll entertain a budget resolution if the board has one forthcoming.
Okay, so kind of meeting in the middle, I'd like to make a resolution to take proposal A at the 4.91 with moving it down to the 1 coach.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Paulson. Discussion.
I have to be honest with you, and I just don't feel, when I look at what proposal A, I felt more comfortable with proposal B, and I share that with you in the other room. When I look at proposal A, I see, cuts to, people that work at the elementary level. I see cuts to people that work in direct contact with our students. They greet our students in the morning. They create relationships with our students. I know that they provide supervision. Sometimes our students come in the building in the morning, and I'm referring to the teaching assistants. Of course, I don't like to see teachers cut. I don't like to see anybody cut. I have a really hard time with proposing to keep the instructional coaches and even the assistant principal. I'm willing to give that, but I just don't know if I can get behind cutting all of those teaching assistants and all of the support staff.
I guess I just want to clarify. So we're looking at a proposal, and the board is contemplating exceeding, the tax cap, and we've articulated, exceeding it to the tune of a 4.91% tax levy, with various and sundry cuts, as we've seen, talked about repeatedly. Proposal B, if we chose that option, let's say that it just came down to something that simple, with a 4.91% tax levy, has additional cuts, and regardless of whether we choose Proposal A or Proposal B, we are exceeding the tax cap, and if we do not find the support of the community, we're going to a contingency budget, which is going to be exceptionally more dramatic in terms of the volume of cuts. So, the district is looking at cuts, and that's really just the reality of our situation. We heard a little bit of a hurrah, thank you to the governor, they've got a budget, and the hold harmless language was continued, so we're not necessarily going to see a reduction. But the fact of the matter is, the changes that the legislature made in terms of how aid is calculated, okay, the inflation factors that are used and how it's calculated, simply set the stage for this to be an unavoidable situation for many, many, many districts. And it's kind of untenable, and you've heard us talk about it before, to think that this is ultimately what we waited for, right? It's not enough to not have a budget on time, and to go back and forth with this taffy pull of uncertainty. But in the final analysis, even with the governor's proposal, and even with a board that recognizes we need program, recognizes we need, really all of these positions, right? No board member would want to cut any positions if we could avoid it. We're not in a good position to say that we have a choice otherwise. So I do support the fact that we're looking at exceeding the tax levy. I hope that the community, comes out and finds a way to support what it is that we're going to put forth here, because, again, on balance, our fiduciary responsibility to the community, which includes many people that are, for instance, property rich, cash poor, that kind of category, people on fixed incomes and what have you. We're trying to manage both ends. We're looking at exceeding this tax cap levy, but at the same time, we know that there has to be a limit to what we can ask, for our community. So I support, this budget as we've discussed, and with these considerations and modifications. And I'll simply add, it's not a comfortable thing for anyone here, but we went through a considerable process this past year to find our superintendent. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and for my sake, having done some of this work, I'm simply going to sum it up and say this. Here's a head coach, and as much as I would like to, with my experience, second guess the minute by minute game time decisions, as a board member, it's really not within my wheelhouse. I don't work here. I don't have the level of and the intimacy of knowledge that the administration has here. So I support the tax levy increase. I hope that we do find the support for our school. I do think we're going in the right direction, and I think that it's important for everybody to realize that irrespective of this simple act and this resolution, we are going to be looking at cuts no matter what. And that's a dismal prospect, and it's not one that any of us are comfortable with. I do think that what Dr. Ursig and what Ms. Mills have devised and have arrived at is, what they see and what the board by extension sees as being necessary to run the district. So I support this budget. Thank you.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I support the raise in the tax levy. I think our students in Saugerties are our most important natural resource, and even those, kids who are about to enter school. So it's necessary to support and maintain services to them by exceeding the tax cap. Tax cap is an artificial thing that was placed there by our previous governor, and our present governor didn't do us any favors by delaying the budget for 3%, but I would hope that the community can understand, and I also support the raise in the tax levy because I think it's the right thing to do by our students. There's been some conflict among the board with, where to make these cuts, but I think none of us want to make them. And we're also committed to exploring alternative funding sources because state funding isn't fair to Saugerties. There are districts in wealthier counties like Westchester, for example, who could run their school districts without paying state aid, yet they're given excessive state aid. We have one of the lowest per pupil expenditures in Ulster County, if not the lowest, and the funding from the state has to change for our school district to be viable. Without those changes, I think we really need to pursue grant funding, outside funding from foundations, from grant entities, and I'm committed to doing that so we can restore any positions that are cut. And, it would take some work. All the board members are volunteers, all the board members are, deeply committed to doing the best we can for the district, and it's not an us against them type of mentality. This is a very, very difficult vote that we're taking. It's very difficult on our administrative staff to look at these things. And, this is a night where nobody is happy coming out of this. We're making probably the best decision we can that we don't want to make. So I hope the community can understand that. Any other board members?
Bob, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I know that Jeff has already made a motion, so we have to vote on that. I can't make a motion for a resolution to do both? Cut
No,
both, or is that already done?
We got to do the motion that's on the floor.
Okay.
And depending on the outcome of that, then there could be another resolution. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I'd just like to add, can everyone hear me?
No.
And it sounds like this mic is dead. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Okay, thank you. I guess from my perspective, the things that I would have considered as we've gone through this process are that we were being faced with a significant fiscal deficit, given the budget that we were proposed with at the start. And one of the things that I think about, in how we got to where we are, I think that, last week we talked about postmortems, and in my opinion, postmortems are a necessary part of a change process. We made a very big change in our district 3 years ago with the intention to save a significant amount of money, and celebrating that we could have a library media specialist in every single building. And now we find that that is now on the table. And for me, if we had taken a look at, the efficacy of some of those changes, I would have an easier time knowing that was that library media specialist in every building helping with the academic achievement of our students. And now I just feel like that's an expendable position at this point without a whole lot of data behind it, I guess, if you will. Additionally, we were supposed to have saved $1.8 million by doing that restructuring. And if we had been looking about what did we actually save versus what we said we were going to save, maybe we would have spent differently a little bit over the last 3 years. And if we had saved that 1.8 3 years ago, compound that 3 years forward, we may not be in as a dire position as we do find ourselves today. But that being said, we are where we are, and we need to address the situation we are in. And my big concern is depleting our fund balance to a level that's not sustainable. You know, it's dipping into the savings account beyond what is reasonable in my opinion. So that's, you know, why I can support a 4.91 tax levy, because I believe in one regard it's asking for support from the community. We're taking part of our savings that the school district has, you know, has built up over the years, but are dipping into that, and we are making some reductions in the increase in expenses that we were looking to actually project. Am I happy with the content of those cuts? You know, not exactly. You know, specifically when I look at the AP position at the elementary level, you know, I would like to see that maybe be another term position instead of probationary position, that person will be there for another, you know, in perpetuity, really. But if we look at the needs of that building another year from now, there's been building leadership change in that building. We heard last week that special ed is looking to get more support from RCPC, which is a big reason why we had to hire an assistant principal in that building, because of the makeup of the student body. And if we are getting more support from our special services provider, maybe there may not be that need for that position longer term. So maybe if that could be looked at as a term position rather than a probationary position. You know, I'm not 100% happy with the cuts between the coaches and the assistant, the teaching assistants. However, I do feel that, you know, with the science of reading requirements on a go-forward basis, particularly if the coach that's maintained is a literacy coach that can help drive our students' achievements in that area, I'm okay with keeping that. And so that I can support the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'm going to say some contradictory things, and they're all true. First of all, I want to thank the administrators for the time that they've put into creating this budget. Over the last year and a half, I've seen all the pride that everybody all along the way takes in supporting the students and educating them. Every principal has come and told us the success that they're having. We've had student councils come, and those same people are the ones that we're asking now to give up part of that support. I want to thank everybody whose job is on this list for the time that you've put in. We all hoped that there was a way to do this without people who were interacting with kids, but I think at the end of the day, every single person in this district is helping the children grow. If you guys read any of the other meetings, I definitely support this cap. I was hoping we could go higher. And at the same time, even thanking all these people, was hoping we could cut a little bit more to have a little bit more security going forward. But thank you everybody for all your help with all of this.
If anybody, I mentioned last time that we were going to have to make cuts, and I knew that those cuts in some way were probably going to affect my kids directly. And how I would go about evaluating whether I voted yes or not was, did I feel like I was doing the right thing overall for the majority of the students of the district? The word happy shouldn't be thrown around at all, whether it's A or B. I find it interesting that a volunteer position, at the end of the day, I have to vote on people losing their job. So if anybody doubts how serious I take this, I felt like the resolution, I was not comfortable being put in a box of I'm going to choose A or B. I felt the hybrid of putting back some of the positions for those TAs who I think are extremely vital, while hopefully keeping something on an instructional coach 1, hopefully something around literacy, which I know is an effort we're pushing forward. I thought it was a median that helped us keep the most amount of jobs across the board. But I can tell you the word happy when I walk out of here will not be something I'll be feeling.
Mr. Wells, any comment?
Honestly, I'd like to kind of concur with what Jeff just kind of said. You know, I have children in the district. Obviously, pretty much any one of these cuts will probably affect my children. You know, it's something that the entire board has put a lot of time and energy into, and you know, none of these decisions were taken lightly. You know, it is a volunteer position, and quite honestly, I've had a lot of nights that I didn't really sleep well. A lot of days kind of mulling over, you know, where to go with this, what's going on, what we can do. But it is something that everyone on the board takes very seriously. You know, the goal was to still give the students of Saugerties the best possible education we can. You know, and I still do feel, similar to what Jeff said, that having a literacy instructional coach is big. But we also wanted to play the give and take game where we try to keep as many, you know, TAs and other positions that we possibly could. But unfortunately, you know, we're limited in what we have, with the money we have, unfortunately. And you know, that's kind of all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else? None being heard, I'll call for a roll call vote, Kelly.
Robert Tillman?
No, just to be clear, so the resolution will read that the Board of Education of the Saugerties Central School District hereby adopts the 24-25 budget in the amount of $77,751,445 and authorizes the submission of the property tax report card.
Okay, go ahead.
Robert Tillman?
Yes.
William Ball?
Yes.
Carol Kelder?
No.
Christine Villarosa?
Yes.
Jeffrey Riazzi?
Yes.
Raymond McClary?
Yes.
Scott Polston?
Yes.
Timothy Wells?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7 yes, 1 no.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. So moved by Mr. Ball, is there a second? Second, Mr. Riazzi. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Change of reduction of 3 instructional coaches and reduction of part-time teaching assistants instead of 13.
No,